Naval Ravikant is a successful entrepreneur and an angel investor who has made big money by investing in right companies at right time. Angel investing is investing money in startups usually in exchange for equity. He made millions by making early investments in more than 200 companies like Uber, Twitter, Stack Overflow, etc. He also tweets self-help aphorisms like this: if you don't lie awake at night thinking about it, you don't want it badly enough. Or you have one life, don't settle for mediocrity. So, a rich guy who tells you what you want to hear. Naval has hit the perfect formula for being a spiritual influencer. He has almost 2.5 million followers on Twitter, and his YouTube channel has 810,000 subscribers, and he has also appeared on Joe Rogan's podcast. The point is, this is a rich, smart guy with a lot of social influence. So, when he spreads misinformation about the reasons to have children, it should be called out. Naval was interviewed recently on BeerBiceps podcast, which, by the way, is claimed to be one of the biggest podcasts in India with almost 8 million subscribers. Now, I have cut out certain clips from Naval's interview. Here, he is asked about marriage.
Has marriage brought further understanding when it comes to life?
Yeah, marriage is complicated. It's a negotiation between people. You have to learn how to live together. You have kids. It's not easy. But I'm not the person to give marital advice. I do encourage children. I think children are amazing.
Really?
First thing is, the question Naval was asked was about marriage. He conflates marriage or being married with having children, which was unnecessary. I agree that a committed relationship between parents is generally a healthy environment for children. But there are many happily married couples who don't have children or don't want to have children. Anyway, he swiftly moves on from marriage to having kids.
I do encourage children. I think children are amazing.
Really?
Everyone should have kids. Yeah, absolutely. I don't understand this antinatalist thing. We're here, you're here, I'm here because an unbroken chain of our ancestors, from tadpoles to monkeys to now, had children. Are you going to be the first ones to miss that branch? I mean, if you believe in some afterlife, all your ancestors are looking down, you're saying, "Oh my God, I can't believe it. We struggled so hard. We fought tigers. We crossed mountains. We froze during the ice ages. And this idiot just decided not to have children because he couldn't be bothered."
For that guy to stop this chain.
Yeah, he's the one who screwed up, right?
Now, there are many things to unpack here. Naval is assigning a purpose to biological evolution through which we have come to exist. The chain that he is talking about from tadpoles to humans was a series of random mutations, accidents, and natural selection which had no purpose, rhyme, or reason. The animals reproduced because they were programmed by evolution through natural selection to make copies of themselves. That little frog, which had some tadpoles, did not even know, let alone care, that after a million years there would be some hairless ape who has to go to work to survive and who has to survive in order to go to work. To assign this purpose to evolution is a great mistake. It is like saying that the dinosaurs went extinct so your precious self could live today, or that asteroid had a purpose for you to be born. To think this way is an egotist delusion. Even on a collective level, this is not true. The theory of evolution is a description of how we came to be, not why we came to be, and certainly not a prescription of what we should be doing henceforth.
I think it is important to remember that although natural selection does explain why we're here, it doesn't provide us with a recipe for how we ought to behave necessarily morally or politically or anything like that.
Now, Naval understands that he is not going to meet his ancestors. Here's another clip from 5 years ago where he says the same thing but in a slightly different way.
Why have kids? Well, someone asked why have children. So you were put here, you came here through an unbroken chain of your ancestors, from tadpoles till now, that all replicated. Are you literally going to be the first ones to miss that branch? I mean, yes, of course my ancestors are dead and I will never communicate with them, but I just can't even imagine the thought that I have great uncles and great grandfathers and great great grandfathers who suffered all kinds of misery and hell to survive and to replicate, and I'm going to say, oh yeah, I couldn't be bothered.
Okay, so you can imagine your ancestors having a purpose, which in effect is just a notional purpose. But then, can you not imagine what your potential child will have to go through in their life if they were brought here, and how they're not missing out on any of the benefits of life if they're not brought here? And even though he started with tadpoles, one can argue that our more recent ancestors, like our grandfathers or great grandfathers, going back a few centuries, had a purpose in having children. Maybe some of them really thought about humanity a few hundred years down the line, but that is still doubtful. I mean, do you think that people who have children today, they are thinking of their descendants in the year 3000 and that is the motivation for them to have children? A recent UN report shows that more than half of the pregnancies are in fact accidental, and even those which are planned are not planned with the thought of some descendant in the year 3000. Of course, there are some exceptions, but generally speaking, that's not the rule. So, if this is the situation in today's scientifically and technologically advanced world, what are the chances that your great 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 grandmother in the year 1100 was thinking about you in the 21st century and your descendants in the year 3000 while struggling to survive herself? And even if we agree for the sake of argument that some of our ancestors did have a purpose, it does not follow that we have to respect that or that they were right by today's standards. I am certain that my grandparents from both sides had a strong desire for all of their grandchildren to be super religious, God believing, pious Hindus. They spent a lot of energy in raising my parents to be religious so that I could turn out to be the same. Does that mean I can't be an atheist now? Now, you might argue that reproduction is far deeper than some philosophical disagreement, but that's not actually true. Atheism, veganism, ethical and rational thinking, and antinatalism are as deep a part of my identity as being a parent and raising kids for a certain purpose was for them. So, this appeal to ancestors to justify having children just does not make any sense at all. And in fact, as an antinatalist, I am rather proud to be the one to break this mindless cycle of suffering. In the words of Abu al Mari, this is my father's crime against me, which I myself committed against none. This, by the way, is a quote on his tomb. Let's come to the second part where he confuses between child free people and antinatalism. Child free people may not want to have children because they have their own priorities for themselves.
I couldn't be bothered.
And this idiot just decided not to have children because he couldn't be bothered.
This is not actually true for ethical antinatalists. They tend to think a lot about having children. I would argue more than many a parent. They are one of the most bothered people about the suffering in the world. In fact, they are so bothered about it that being bothered about it is the reason for them to not have children.
I couldn't be bothered. I was having too good of a time to actually pass the genes along. So I think that's one reason to have children.
Too good of a time to pass the genes along? This is the weirdest argument and demonstrates how he misunderstands how genes work. Genes want you to have a good time. That is why sex has evolved, at least in humans and a few other species, so that you can have a good time and in the process have children. Imagine if having sex was a dull job which required a lot of reasoning. Would the human race continue to exist? Now, I know he meant parenthood there, which is hard, but the fact that he's equating parenthood to passing on genes is very problematic.
I think the second reason is that when you have children, you learn to love something more than you love yourself. And you can talk about that all day long, but you've never had that feeling until you've had a child. And it's very important for all of us, I think, to experience that feeling.
Again, when you have children, you are having copies of yourself. So, loving your children is just loving yourself. It is quite narcissistic that I have to create a copy of myself to love myself and call it some kind of altruistic deed. That's not loving someone more than yourself. That is loving yourself by using someone else.
Thirdly, I think that at some level, if you don't have kids, your genes. You don't want your genes to know that you've given up, right? You're a carrier for your genes, and you're sort of controlled by them, not in a puppets and strings sort of way where they're conscious and controlling you, but in a you're literally evolved to serve your genes.
Again, evolution tells you how you are here, not what you should do with it. If you use being evolved to serve your genes as a justification for your actions, then you can justify many horrible acts like stealing, aggression, violence. I'm actually shocked that a person of such caliber is using such lousy justifications.
So I just feel like if you don't replicate, if you choose not to have children, then you're basically violating your biological programming in such a severe way that I have to believe that it will come back to bite you in your moods or in your sense of meaning or fulfillment later in life. Some people can't have kids, unfortunately. So for them, I think that they find God, or they adopt kids, or they love and give in other ways, and all that is valid.
Notice that there is no consideration for the child that will be born, the suffering that they have to go through. They are just brought here as a means for your so called genetic programming or for you to find meaning in life. And then those children will have to have children of their own to find meaning in their own lives. This is what is called as procreative pyramid scheme.
But I'm just saying that if you have the opportunity, do the service for your ancestors, have the kids, do the service according to your genes, have the kids, and give yourself the gift of loving something other than yourself, or more than yourself.
Do the service to your ancestors who are already dead. Do the service to your genes who don't even care about who you are, who are not conscious beings. They are just molecules. Do service to these molecules, but don't worry about bringing another sentient being here who will have to go through a lifetime of suffering. And give yourself a gift of loving something other than you and call that gift an act of altruism, or justify this by other such pseudo philosophical aphorisms. So, Naval is rich, Naval is smart, and I don't agree with what he's saying about having children, but I agree with him on one point, and that is that he does not understand antinatalism.
I don't understand this antinatalist thing.